So, what happens when the very systems that are supposed to protect you at work completely fail? Today, we're going to look at the alleged failures at a major IT firm in Nashik, not just to understand a story, but to build a survivor's guide for every single employee out there. Because knowing your rights and seeing the red flags, that's your first and honestly, your most powerful line of defense. Let's dive in. Just let that sink in for a second. These are the alleged words from a senior manager to someone trying to report harassment. Let it go. It's such a chilling phrase, and it cuts right to the heart of the problem we're talking about, when the people whose job it is to help you are the ones actively trying to silence you. This isn't just a mistake or negligence. It's a massive warning sign of a system that's been turned against the very people it's meant to protect. And this slide really lays out that contradiction perfectly. On the left, you've got the shiny official company policy, that zero-tolerance promise you see in the employee handbook. But then look at the right. That's the reality investigators allegedly found, a culture of active suppression. It's this huge gap between what a company says and what it does that creates a dangerous space where people can get seriously hurt. To avoid these kinds of situations, you first have to understand the playbook. Harassment is almost never this one big, sudden event. It's usually a slow, calculated process. So let's break down the mechanics of something called workplace grooming. So what exactly is workplace grooming? Well, think of it as a really manipulative strategy. It's when someone in a position of power, like a manager or a senior leader, slowly and methodically sets the stage for abuse. The whole goal is to blur those professional lines, create dependency, and make it so confusing that the victim might not even realize they're being exploited while it's happening. And this process, it often follows a pretty predictable pattern. It'll start with things like over-the-top praise, maybe some small gifts, a lot of extra attention, all to build trust. Then comes the isolation, subtly trying to cut that person off from their work friends or other mentors. After that, they start testing boundaries, with small, slightly inappropriate requests. And finally, it can escalate to full-blown coercion and threats, using the fear of professional backlash to keep control. Now, this isn't just theory. In the Nasha case, investigators allegedly found this exact playbook in action. They uncovered digital targeting through WhatsApp groups, which is a classic isolation tactic. They found false promises being used as emotional leverage, a way of testing boundaries. And then, there it was. Threats of professional retaliation, like losing your job. That's the final stage, coercion, used to lock the victim in. Okay, so what happens when you actually try to report this stuff? I mean, in theory, every big company has safety nets in place, right? HR, complaints committees. But what happens when those nets don't just have a few holes? What if they're being intentionally cut? Let's look at how these systems can completely collapse from the inside. For me, this is the most shocking part of this whole case. It's the alleged complicity of the gatekeepers themselves. The investigation suggests that key people in HR, and even a member of the POSH committee, that's the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Committee, the actual group legally required to handle these complaints, were allegedly central to the problem. This table just lays it all out, doesn't it? Look at the columns. You've got the corporate narrative on one side and the investigative reality on the other. So the company says, hey, we encourage internal reporting. But in reality, those very channels were allegedly used to suppress reports and threaten victims. The company says its internal complaints committee ensures safety. The reality, key members were allegedly part of the problem. This isn't just one bad apple. It's the alleged failure of an entire internal system. On paper, the official POSH process looks pretty good. You can see from this flowchart, a complaint comes in, it goes to the committee, they investigate, and then there's a decision. It's designed to be a clear, fair path. But here's the thing about any system. It's only as good as the people running it. When the people at every step of this process are allegedly compromised, the whole flowchart just becomes a meaningless piece of paper. Okay, so we've analyzed the problem, but this explainer is really all about empowerment. So let's pivot. Let's move from what went wrong to what you can do right. It's time to build your survivor's toolkit and arm you with the knowledge and the concrete steps you can take. So when you get that gut feeling that the internal system can't be trusted, you have to start creating your own safeguards. This is all about you taking back control of your own story and, crucially, your own evidence. First things first, document everything. And I mean everything. Hard evidence is your power. Screenshot every single chat and email. Keep a detailed diary and don't write it from memory a month later. Do it as things happen. Write down the date, the time, who was there, the exact words they used. Save every performance review. This creates an undeniable paper trail that can't just be brushed off as a misunderstanding. It's also so important to know who the law actually protects. Under India's POSH Act, the term aggrieved woman is defined really broadly. It's not just for full-time employees. We're talking trainees, contract workers, interns, even a visitor to the office. The law gets that anyone in that professional space can be a target. And if you do decide to file an internal complaint, the law gives you specific rights while the investigation is going on. You are legally protected from being retaliated against. You have the right to ask for a transfer for either yourself or the person you're accusing, just to create a safe workspace. You can be granted up to 3 months of paid leave. And maybe most importantly, the whole thing is supposed to be confidential. But what if that internal process is a dead end? What if HR is the problem? Well, the good news is your company is not the final judge and jury. The law gives you very clear ways to seek justice outside of those corporate walls. Let me just be really clear about this. You are never, ever trapped. If you've been failed by your employer, you have every single right to take your evidence, take your case, and go to external authorities. And one of the most powerful external steps you can take is filing what's called a First Information Report, or an FIR, with the police. This is what officially kicks off a criminal investigation. And the process itself can seem intimidating, but it's pretty straightforward. You go to the station, you state the facts clearly, you make sure they write it down accurately before you sign anything, and you always, always get a free copy for your own records. It's also really empowering to know the specific laws. For example, the fires in the Nashik case were filed under sections of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, that's India's new penal code, that cover things like outraging a woman's modesty and stalking. Citing the right section of the law shows that you're informed and that your complaint is serious business. And please remember this.